I'll show you. Oh, well, you're asking too many questions all in a row. I have my favorite for general painting is the tree foliage. I'll do a rundown of brushes if you guys are all amenable to that. I'll do it on a different image, but let's go to the different image. I want to show you a few things. We'll just do like a super quick beginners Procreate detail thing. Okay, so you can do, if you want to do like add references, you can, like I like to do this where if you swipe it to the left, you can insert a private photo, so then you can go to your photos and you can grab an image that you got. Like let's say we wanted to do this one. So now I have this in, and you see how it's in the this, I don't know, this is like a manipulate the selection thing. So you can do things like flip, you could play around with this. I'm not going to go over every option, but snapping is a big deal. Like if I turn off snapping, it lets me free float it, but if snapping is on, it goes to the edges. Magnetics is a way to make it like it'll snap to angles, but if you want it to snap to the edges of a layer or edges of your canvas, that's how you turn that on. If you want to do select, that's this one. You can freehand, automatic, rectangle, ellipse. You can also feather it. So if I go like roughly get this and then feather, boop, 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 and then I could do copy paste, and you'll be able to see that it makes a new layer, but it's all feathered. So, that's just some quick little things. Canvas, you could go under to canvas and you can flip the whole canvas. I never do that. The canvas information, this is where I learned you could go to statistics. You can see how many strokes you've done, the file size, how much time is tracked, good information like that. You could turn on reference. Like this is a very good tool. I use this every single time. I can turn on a reference and I can bring in a picture that is from, or I can just reference the canvas. So if I'm zooming in really close here and I have the canvas, I can be seeing what this thing that I'm working on really zoomed in is doing for the whole canvas. I almost never do this. I usually use my reference image. Okay, so under adjustments, the big ones here are, you could do a lot of, like look up a lot of clone, liquefy, chromatic aberration. Like you can do some interesting little comic booky effects to your picture. I don't know if you're seeing how it makes it look like real, it is a real photo, but chromatic aberration, something you get with like on the edges of real photos. So you could do that to your picture that you have made. You can also, another one that I like to do is hue, saturation, and brightness, so I can change the hues. This is the same kind of stuff you would get in photo tools, photo touch-up tools. So I can make by channel. So I use those. You can also do curves. Another one is if you have mostly beneficial for grayscale, you do a gradient map and you can colorize the whole thing based off of a gradient. And I think this is looking for the value, the dark and light, when it picks this. Anyway, cancel. Curves, you can also do blur. you'd have to look at these. So that's the basic. Now when we're coming to the question of brushes, I like to use, I've got smudging, inking, sketching, and favorites are basically where these 4 brush sets that I have. And there's some duplicates, but for general painting, I have this tree foliage one. Let me get that big. And it makes this really textury, chunky looking. If you go on the side, it makes it just more expressive. This is a little bit tighter. This is a little looser. So if you see that you take your Apple Pencil and go to the side with it, it changes that. You can do some really good mixing with that. Tree foliage is probably my biggest used mix brush. It creates this really beautiful, like, it's not super homogeneous. You can mix things together, and you get this beautiful blend between the 2 values that you're mixing. But you don't have any hard edges. It's like a really brushy look. So if you're looking for a hard edge like here, where I want to have a watermelon up next to a glass, you don't use this. But I also will use, like, Rusted Decay is another one, and I've been using that a lot in this one. Oops, let's make it bigger. Rusted Decay is puts these, it's like it puts these little dots, and so you got sections of large blocked color, but you also have sections of splotches, which you don't get that in the tree foliage brush. But I can get some really nice torn edges mix here when I do that. You have to play with it to get it. You want me to upload this to YouTube? Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you guys are saying that you think this should be a YouTube video, I can do that. Okay, so this almost looks like it looks like a geode to me, kinda. Let's put in some darker. And this is just kind of showing how you can get some really beautiful effects in Procreate with like no work if you use the right brushes and you're comfortable with them. So you want, you definitely, the more you use the brush, the more you're going to get comfortable with what the look is going to be. Because I could tell you that when I first started using the tree foliage brush, I couldn't do it for as many things as I can do it for, or use it for right now. I use the tree foliage brush. I use some of these brushes for pretty much everything. I'll use it for line work, which is just like, well, it's not made for line work. Why would you do that? But, so my favorite brush for line work is actually called Dry Ink. And let's add, I'll show you adding some line work. So it's very expressive. I'm pushing harder or softer based on whether I want it to be a thick or a thin line. And then I'll take usually my tree foliage brush and go back and smooth out one edge. And so you get the hard edge on one side will give you a boundary, and the soft edge on the other side, you have this blend, which is really good for things like light and dark. Shadows and edges, like where you've got some. You should have tree foliage. I think tree foliage is a default Procreate brush. How's it going, Mr. Gamby? It should be under, let's see, where would it be originally? Textures? Elements? Materials? Let's see if I can find it. Organic? I don't know. Abstract? I may have to figure out. Really good. Hey, that's good to hear. Especially considering you've been having some struggles lately. People aren't complaining until you, so let's see. I can't turn it up anymore, I don't think. Aw. Is that better at all? I'm gonna have to look, K-Dog, because I'm not sure where. I'm not sure why I think at one point I had checked and made sure that all of these were something that everybody had access to. The patient? I'm wishing that today I am wishing that the antibiotics worked better or faster. I'm gonna have to look and see if I can figure out where tree foliage is, where I got it from. I thought I had that figured out at one point in the past. Another good brush, this cloud brush, I got that from Tatiana? Tatiana? Let me find her. You could get, like, this is a really good. You have to be a patron, I believe, to get this one. But the cloud brush is really good. So if you go to cloud brush, it makes really good cottony texture. So, like that. Makes good cloudy stuff. So I got this one somewhat recently, and I absolutely love it. It's really good for sky. Yeah, but this one's this one's better. But yes, you need a cloud brush. You absolutely have to have a cloud brush. Some kind of cloud brush is needed for, like, I just so good. Another, so then you can get comfortable with some of these other ones. I like this Kunami one. I think this is a default, but it makes this really cool looking scratchy line where the dry ink does like a line that has voids in it. The Kunani does like a dry brush with bristles in it. Another cool thing is you could get this flicks, and I like to use this sometimes, to erase. So you can end up with, if you put a light color down and then erase it with flicks, you end up with this really beautiful splotchy. You can also do it the other way around. Like if I wanted to put in my geode, if I wanted to put imperfections, I could put the flicks down. What the flicks? And then I like to usually, like pretty much always, will like to blend. But you don't have to blend every single edge. You just blend a lot of it so you've blurred it a little bit until you feel like you've got enough. And so now I could go back, like if, let's say I wanted this to be like gold leaf or something. I could take this, I could go back to the inking, I grab this, and now I can add like the edges of the gold leaf. And I can use this as a starting place to give me a nice randomness. And then work each bit in individually until I like it. Not on the right layer. If that makes sense. So then I might be able to do something like, like highlights from gold leaf. Or whatever. And that's a perfectly acceptable 5-minute painting, even just like it is. Using all of those brushes. Does that make sense? There's layer modes. You can group layers. Like if I wanted these to be grouped, I can group them. You can erase them. You can duplicate them. Hopefully that's a pretty good, like, primer to using Procreate. Any questions from the class?
At the first stroke, it will be 10, 4, precisely.
Before I move back to the watermelons. Okay, I'm going back to the watermelons then.